Ms. Meagan Fettes is the Joy Coach, teaching worldwide tools, joy, abundance, and success in their lives. She breaks down the science and fundamentals of our mind, holding patterns, and vibrational shifts to support people in stepping into a higher potential and live with more fulfilling relationships and work life. Megan's teachings come from a deep understanding of yoga philosophy and embodying the skills of balancing our lower and higher minds to live a life with ease, balance, and abundance. And it is my great honor and privilege to welcome on in the amazing Joy Coach Meagan Fettes. Yay!
Awesome.
All right, Megan.
Thanks, Dr. V.
How are you doing? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How are you doing?
Where are you from? You're from. I'm great. You're from Canada?
Yes. Yes, just outside of Calgary. We're getting the blistering north cold winds finally.
So tell me about Megan as a little girl.
Yeah, totally. So I had a lot of crazy experiences myself when I was younger. I grew up in a very spiritual house. So I had a lot of these tools taught to me from a young age. And then through my course of journeying, I actually landed myself into addiction. And yes, so I had to work through a lot of my own inner conflicts, I'll call them, and learn how to bring myself out and bring myself back into my center. And ever since that moment, I have been so passionate about supporting people in understanding what holds them back and what generates those holding patterns in their lives so they can truly thrive.
What did you use to get out of the addiction?
I actually used yoga and meditation to bring myself completely out of addiction.
That's very cool. What about a yoga do you think enables that?
A lot of it's the actual lifestyle of yoga. Because many people just think about yoga as the movement. But there's so many other aspects. It's understanding the different levels of our minds, why we think the way that we think, why we act the way that we act. And the space of meditation, being able to get back into myself and understand more about me so that I could move forward versus that self-comparison that is so common.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't yoga actually mean union?
Yes, it does.
Are you impressed I do that?
No, I love that. You know what? My favorite thing ever is when doctors know a lot about yoga because it is so beneficial. There's so many beautiful things that it has to offer us.
I'm a crazy Asian, that's why. All right, so let's apply. So how did you go from yoga to joy?
Well, one of the things after I brought myself to the space that I am in, got more self-centered, one thing that I realized is people have this natural ability, and I believe it's from conditioning, where we live in that self-comparison. So we rob ourselves from joy. And what I've witnessed is that joy is one of the most empowering things that we can live from. It's in the same category as gratitude. And it's something that we can access at any time that will shift our vibration, it'll shift our thoughts, and of course, it'll shift our actions.
So does joy lead to gratitude or does gratitude lead to joy?
That's a good question. That's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
So let's say someone who doesn't have joy in their life right now, do they start with gratitude or how do they get more joy in their life, would you say?
One of the tools that I love to teach is, first of all, slowing down. So one of the biggest aspects that I have found that robs our joy is we move in a very busy society. So instead, we're always looking externally versus allowing ourselves to come back to the internal.
So are you saying that joy is an inside job?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, when I do weight loss surgery, As a Western medicine doctor, we work, we talk about the metabolism, the physiology, but I don't think we put enough emphasis on the mind-body connection.
Yes, and the mind-body connection is essential, because when a lot of individuals, and especially from your target audience here, that have gone through that incredible process of weight loss, if their mind hasn't caught up to those shifts in the body, then it's naturally they're going to see something that's not their physical reality anymore. So it's when we allow ourselves to actually slow down and get into the meditation, then we can learn what the mind is actually speaking. Mm-hmm. What stories are we being told that we're listening to and engaging into?
Yeah, I often tell the patients that the hardest part of this journey is actually the mental process.
Yes.
So what would you tell them to re-engage the mental and the physical alignment?
Mm-hmm. So the first one, of course, is meditation. So getting into that space where we can drop in, because again, I'm going to be very real here, where if we're going throughout our day, we know that our mind is always talking to us. We can hear the stories, but we're not truly understanding where those stories are coming from until we slow down and start listening. So as soon as we begin to start listening, then we can see where those stories are actually generating from. And I like to call them our core limiting beliefs. We'll start to find a pattern of what our core limiting beliefs are, those stories that we tell ourselves that are truly not real, but we engage into them so much that they feel real. Once there's that connection to those core limiting beliefs, then it's reconnecting to our breath. Okay, so reconnecting to the presence of our physical body. Breath is the best thing that we can connect to bring us into the present moment, and then reframe into a new way of thinking. So affirmations are really powerful.
So what is an affirmation that you really like?
One of the biggest affirmations I love is I am worthy.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Mm-hmm. I find lately the biggest, a lot of my students, a lot of my clients that I work with tend to have this feeling of not being worthy. And a lot of it, again, comes from old conditioning, old paradigms or programs that we've had from our childhood. So as soon as we can tap into that worthiness, then all of a sudden it shifts that self-comparison of not being as good as what we see externally, and allowing ourselves to tap into the true reality of how worthy we are, all are, right from the beginning.
So where does that sense come from that we're not worthy?
It comes from usually one pivotal experience that we've had. Usually it's stimulated from learning from our parents, whether they had that belief system themselves or they reacted in ways that we perceived that meaning about ourselves. And it's not a fault of our parents. They're just running off of their programs, and they're running off of programs that they were taught, and so on and so forth. So it's one pivotal moment that we've had in our childhood that creates that idea that we're not worthy, that in order to be worthy, we need to change ourselves to fit in.
Now, you said something earlier that a lot of our unhappiness comes from comparisons. Do you think that leads to feeling like you're unworthy?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we live in this, well, now, and I love social media because it's such a great platform for us to connect. However, we have this tendency of looking on social media, and social media, we often only see the successes. We don't often talk about what it took to get to that point. So instead of having that vulnerability in communication, we just allow ourselves to see that external point of view, and then we generate our own story around it.
Mm-hmm. And, I think also, like in the weight loss surgery community, we often have what I see as comparisons to your former self too.
Mm. Yes.
Like some people will lose a lot of weight, get healthy, and something bad happens to them. They'll say, you know, I was actually happier when I was fat. At least I could eat, you know, at least I could eat more. And I feel terrible when I see someone say that because I know that they're struggling on the mental part.
Yes. And you can utilize food as well as an indicator of what's going on that mental aspect.
How so?
So, because food will stimulate different aspects in our brains. So, a really simple one we'll say is sugars, right? Sugar will naturally stimulate dopamines within our brain, which also is connected to our self-love. So when we're loving ourselves, we're naturally producing those dopamines.
That's the feel-good hormones.
Yes. And so instead, we'll often go to that like instant gratification of sugars. And I mean, I get it. I have been there myself. So I definitely can relate to that. So it's allowing ourselves in those moments to check in and see, what is it that I'm doing that is not supporting me in feeling that self-love? How can I stimulate more joy for myself in this moment?
So Michelle writing has a good comment. She says, while practicing yoga, it's when I see my skin the most and it takes away from my practice. I try to be appreciative and take notice of the good that I'm blessed with. But honestly, she has great sadness with all that skin. So how do you, what do you say to someone like that? You know, like doing the practice of yoga causes me the sadness. It's a tough one.
Yes. Well, and there's so many, like if you're looking at practicing the physical practice of yoga, there's so many different styles that you can utilize that will take away that viewpoint. And what I always encourage is when you're starting out, and especially slowing down and tapping more into that space of joy, start with a slower practice, like restorative, where you're not moving as much. Okay. You're allowing yourself to go back within yourself. Yes.
And do they search for this, or do they just tell their instructor they want to do restorative yoga?
Yes. Any studio will have an idea of what classes will be supportive in that regards. So ask for restorative yoga. And if they don't have it at that specific studio, they might be able to point you in the direction of someone that does.
Okay. And then what would be kind of like the next progression of harder and harder yogas, would you say?
So the next one would be gentle. So a gentle practice where you're still working the body, but it's not as intense. And then up to hatha yoga.
Spell that.
So it's Hatha.
Oh, hatha yoga. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And tell me what hatha yoga is.
So this is kind of funny, actually. Hatha is the seed of yoga. So it is really what yoga asana or yoga movement was created for. It's basically a way of becoming fairly intense within your practice, but you're doing a pose and then following up by a counter pose. So for example, you do a back bend and then follow it by a forward fold.
I ain't doing it.
So everything. Oh, come on. Back bends are so much fun.
So the physical part of yoga, now talk about the spiritual part of yoga and how that's going to give us more joy.
Yeah, because the physical practice is only one out of what we call 8 limbs of yoga. So it's a very, very small piece. And where the spiritual aspect comes in is recognizing, first of all, that we are all one soul. So we're all different expressions of that one soul, meaning that we're all connected, which is actually quite beautiful. The other element of that, which is so incredible, is that our internal experience creates our external experience.
Right.
Meaning that when we allow ourselves to tap into what's going on within and change our personal perspective, we can change our whole world. So one of those aspects is tapping into doing things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes, like, we forget when we're kids, we can just go out and play. Right? We allow ourselves with no thought to just jump in there and play. And as we turn into adults, we hold ourselves back. We give ourselves only permission once we've gotten to a certain point. And instead, what I encourage my students and my clients to do is start with joy first.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's a specific song that you love to listen to, or whether that's painting or drawing or playing something, a game, going out for walks, whatever it is that brings you joy, how can you tap into that first every single day?
That's cool. A lot of patients tell me when they're trying to start meditation, they can't quiet their minds. They can't make their mind stop running and blah, 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 blah. What do you say to that? What's a good way to do that?
Yeah. So this is one of those kind of stories that has been created in the meditation world.
Mm-hmm.
We are never without thoughts. Even the thought of thinking that you have no thoughts is a thought.
It's a thought.
So we always have those thoughts. And the only reason that your mind is getting loud is because you're allowing yourself to listen to it. So instead, within meditation, instead of trying to shut off your thoughts, notice how you can become more of an observer of your thoughts. So allow yourself to not engage into your thoughts, but let them move through your mind with ease. Notice them, accept them, and then release them.
Yeah, I think that's a big misconception. You know, people say, Dr. Vuong, I can't shut off my mind when I try to meditate. I'm like, you can't shut off your heart either. You can't shut off your kidneys from working. You can't shut off. Like, what makes you think you can shut off your mind? And I'm a little bit, you're apparently a lot nicer than me. I'm a much harsher person. So I'd be like, you know, so that's just an excuse. Get over it, sit down and focus on your breathing. That's all you got to do, really. But after so after you get through the breathing part, is there a higher level to take it to?
To connect the mind and the body?
Yeah.
Yes. So, and this might be a really challenging exercise for a lot of the viewers, but it's something that I definitely do encourage. Is once you go from recognizing your thoughts and tapping back into your breath, and I don't know if any of you have heard of this or if you even teach this to your patients, Dr. Vuong, is mirror play.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So allowing, yes, that's one of my favorite tools. And especially when we're disconnected from ourselves and our bodies, that's one of the best ways is being able to reconnect to our soul versus our perceived body image.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say, let's say there's a patient who's lost a lot of weight and 125, 150 pounds, and they've got a lot of loose, saggy skin in their arms and necks and their abdominal region, big sagging apron of skin and thigh skin. And they're standing naked in front of a mirror, looking at that body. And you're looking there with them. What would you say to them at that moment?
So in that moment, I always encourage look into your eyes versus looking at your body. Because that's actually going to help connect you to yourself. And especially in that moment when there is often, especially no matter what body image that's coming up, there's always going to be the initial judgment of self when you stand in front of the mirror. So notice, again, breath. Look into your eyes and then begin to pinpoint the areas that you have the most challenge with. So say that is like the abdominal. Focus on sharing, like telling yourself, I love you. I love your abdominals. I love your stomach. And keep saying that and saying it over and over and over again, keeping that gaze in the mirror until you begin to feel the emotions dissipate. Yes. So start with the eyes and then move into the area that feels most challenging.
Not least challenging.
And then begin to express most challenging.
Why do you start with most challenging as opposed to least challenging?
Because we'll often avoid those areas that we feel most challenged with. And so those are often the indicators of where our holding patterns are within our minds.
I love that.
So allow yourself to go there.
All right. Yeah. So that's really powerful. So they're going to look at the part they hate the most and say what? That
they love it and keep saying it. Keep saying it because at first it's going to feel really weird. I get told that all the time. Like, this feels really weird, Meagan. And always, like, keep going until you feel like that weirdness begin to dissipate and that awkwardness begin to dissipate until you feel those words begin to actually resonate.
I think we're striking a chord because Lucy Underwood just wrote, I love me now, thanks to you, Megs. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So do you recommend that they touch the body part, rub the loose skin, put lotion on it? What do you
bring your hands to that area? Absolutely. Touch. So bring your hands to that area. Let yourself be fully connected to that space of your body.
Okay.
And absolutely let yourself see it, touch it, like bring in as much sensory as you possibly can, all 5 senses into that one space. Because the more that you can bring in your 5 senses, again, you're going to disengage the chatter of the mind and you're going to engage the actual thinking capacity of the mind so that you can reprogram it.
Oh, wow. So you're saying this is almost a form of meditation then?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell you, in my experience, it doesn't matter if you're a weight loss surgery patient. Pretty much everybody, including men, has some part of their body they don't like. And they could be supermodels, and they might not like how their thighs look, or their hips are, big, or whatever.
Yeah. Or again, we're kind of pre-programmed to focus on what's not amazing about ourselves instead of being able to acknowledge everything that is. And so something that I just love to share, and this is something that I share with a lot of my students. That's why I kind of feel compelled to share it, if that's okay, Dr. V.
Yes, please. Yes.
Something that we often forget about is our ability to move through challenges. And so this is a kind of more of the spiritual take on things. But from the moment of conception, so those moments that those 2 half cells came together to create that one cell that continues on to generate your whole physical body, you were self-generating and self-motivating. And so the spiritual aspect of that is every single person was able to generate a completely functioning human body from the simple creation of one cell. Which is pretty incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't actually,
and we often
you don't have
to
schedule it. You don't have to plan it. You don't do like a project spreadsheet about it. Like next year I'll be older. I need this many more cells. It just does it all automatically.
Yeah, and that's part of like who we are. That's something that we've been able to create on that spiritual level. And so the more that we can tap into that and acknowledge that aspect, the greater we have the ability to move through and see challenges, just simply that, a challenge that we can overcome.
So, a quick technical question. Candy Hunt says, should they be saying that out loud? Like, I love my skin. I love this area. Okay, so we're going to say it out loud. Okay. And how many times? Is there a number of times? Do you want to do it 10 times in a row?
Until the feeling begins to dissolve. Like, until the feeling of weirdness or like awkwardness begins to dissolve. And you feel that feeling actually resonate within your body. And it's a practice, right? Like reprogramming, my friends.
Some girls are going to be in the shower like all day long in the bathroom.
The other thing that I'm going to mention,
go ahead,
is when you first start telling yourself that you love yourself, start by personalizing it with your name. So when you're looking in your eyes, begin by saying, I love you, and your name, so that it begins to personalize it. You begin to internalize it, and then move to that part of your body that you least appreciate and start telling it that you love it.
That tip you just said there is really hard. I heard Louise Hay say that about 8 years ago, and I tried it, looking in the mirror saying, I love you, Duc, and it's just really awkward. It feels really weird.
Right? Because how often do we tell ourselves that we love ourselves?
Yeah. But it's super powerful to kind of break those beliefs.
It is. And it is very important for us to create that union between ourselves and our bodies, but acknowledging that we are also not our bodies. We have the opportunity to be connected to it, but it doesn't define us.
Oh, wow. Now, this is actually a good lead-in, because someone said, and I hear this a lot, when I look in the mirror, even though I've lost 150 pounds, I still see the 330-pound version of me. They still see the fat version of them. What would you say to that?
The biggest thing, again, is going back to really seeing your eyes. Let yourself see your eyes, tap into that connection with yourself, not necessarily always your body. Because, again, our body is more so our vehicle in this lifetime. It isn't who we are. It doesn't define us, but we are utilizing it. So connecting, first of all, to the eyes is huge.
Yeah. Your last point was really powerful, which is, our bodies are just a vehicle. They're on loan, and we're going to have to give it back to the earth here in a few years. And talk a little bit more about that. Like, how do you let that go? How do you let that, that connection, this is me, I am this body. How do you let that go?
And a lot of it is, again, like that slowing down aspect. And this is where the meditative practice gets so powerful. And what I always teach when I teach meditation is begin by focusing on your breath, but then begin to focus on the space in between each breath that you take. So that stillness and that space right before you go from your inhales to your exhales. And it's that vastness, that space of where you truly reside.
That's awesome.
So the more that you can create that connection, the more you can begin to dissociate from it being the physical form that defines you. You can tap into more of like the abundance of your soul that is truly who you are.
So I was about to end it, but you said something interesting. Why do you think, or why do you know that we reside in the space between breaths?
Because it's in those spaces. And it's one of those things that you have to experience. But it's in those spaces that we allow ourselves to actually drop in. So we disconnect a little bit from our conscious mind and we begin to drop right into the depths. And it's in those spaces, it's in that stillness, that vastness, that we begin to learn different aspects or connect to different aspects of our souls.
Hmm. My last question for you is this, Meagan. What is it that what is it that is a common belief that everybody holds that you know is absolutely wrong?
Man, that's a good question.
What is a common belief that everyone knows that you absolutely know is completely wrong?
One of the biggest ones that I'll bring up is the fact that we have to wait to appreciate ourselves. Like we have to reach a certain goal or we have to reach a certain outcome before we can begin to celebrate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
goes
totally
back to
false.
the self-worth thing we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Like, I'll be worthy once I get the promotion, once I finish my degree.
Totally. And instead, find the worth. Tap into the joy first, and everything else begins to land into place.
Mm. So your truth would be that you're worthy now.
Yes, totally.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. All right, Miss Meagan, you've given me a lot to think about, and I know my viewers will be talking about this for a long time. I'm super excited that you're going to be with us at Velocity. Is that right?
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm like,
yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
And you're going to be there the whole weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you had a viewer ask if you'd be willing to do like a breakout session or a training class or a short meditation or something like that. Would you be open to something like that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you and I will talk offline, and we'll get that fixed up, and maybe people can purchase some time with you, and you can walk them through that. Sound good?
That sounds great. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to having you there. I know it's going to be an amazing experience. You've really opened up my mind to a bunch of stuff today, and I know my community is going to love on you. Where can they find you if they want to continue to follow you, either on social media or offline, or how would they get a hold of you?
The best way right now is on Facebook, on my Facebook fan page, which is Meagan Fettes, the Joy Coach.
Oh, sweet. All right. So you guys heard it. If you guys want to follow her, give her a follow on Facebook, Meagan Fettes, the Joy Coach. All right. Thank you, hon. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Dr. V.
Bye now.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Woo! What about that? Who would have ever thought that the way to get over your body dysmorphia is to stare at your eyes to connect with your soul while looking in the mirror, and then looking at the part of your body you hate the most, instead of ignoring or trying to avoid it. You know, who is ready to do that? I bet you no one. Very few of you are ready to take on that challenge. Look at the part of your body in the mirror you hate the most and say, I love it. I love my loose skin. I love my loose abs. I love it. I love it. And you have to look at it over and over and over again. Hey, put a comment, maybe number 1, if you are willing to take on that challenge starting today, right now. Get naked, stare in the mirror at the part of the body you hate the most, either your neck, your turkey neck, your bat wings, and start saying, I love my bat wings, I love my bat wings, I love my bat wings in the mirror over and over and over again. All right? That is super powerful to get rid of the dysmorphia. A very practical tip. And also, don't forget to look in the mirror in your eyes. Debbie Moore is going to take the challenge. Diana Brendizer, but not at work. You're correct. Veronica Goforth is going to start trying that. Awesome. But remember, you want to start by looking in your eyes in the mirror and saying, I love you, and then your name. I love you, Shannon Wells. I love you, Ronnie. I love you, Joyce. And she's absolutely right. That's where it all starts. The other thing that she said that was super powerful is that we reside I'm gonna cry because it's true. It's true for me too, and I feel her truth, which is we reside in the space between breaths. That's why meditation is super powerful. Now, if you're not a practitioner of meditation, what she just said there is just gonna be like go right over your head, but it's super deep. It's in the stillness. And there's actually science behind this now. They've done PET scans of your brain to look at what happens when you're meditating, and they can correlate brain activity and different areas of your brain that light up or different areas that go quiet during meditation. So to tap into the space, the gap between breaths is where we reside, because it's at that moment, quite honestly, that we're the most quiet. The most quiet. And I am going to tell you that a lot of the weight loss surgery community will not like this talk. They will, if you share, and I challenge you right now, to share this broadcast. If it opened your eyes, if you're willing to take the challenge, I challenge you to share this broadcast. Tag somebody who needed to watch this whole thing, sit somebody's fat ass down and make them re-watch this with you, because they're still miserable. They're still in their fat brain. They're skinny, but they're unhappy with their loose skin. Have them sit down. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because there is so much bad misinformation going around in our weight loss surgery community. And I know that weight loss surgery is a powerful tool and that we change lives and we blah, blah, blah. We get rid of diabetes, all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to tell you, and I'm the first one to tell these other surgeons, as surgeons, we create a whole nother fucking list of problems for y'all. Don't we? Give me some amens. If we have unintentionally created a whole bunch of other problems for y'all. You guys are now walking little bags of insecurity and lost hopes and dreams, and lost your best friend, your comfort food, and you don't know what to do, you don't know what to do next. And that's an unintended consequence of weight loss surgery. And I challenge my surgeons that we need to come together and deal with this in a different way. Now, I've tried that for 10 years, and they don't want to do it with me, so I took it to the patients. I challenge y'all. Look, Shannon Wells says amen. Carrie Gobble says amen. Michelle says amen. If you're saying amen, Nessie, then you have to step up for me. You have to be one of my leaders. You have to share this broadcast and risk getting kicked out of your other groups. Your other groups are bullshit anyway. They're still, they don't have any answers for you. They don't have any solutions for you. Most of the people, the 50 people who watch this broadcast live, aren't here at the end. And they're not going to go right now to velocityvegas.com and buy their ticket. You've got to come. If Meagan was this powerful on a Facebook Live where it was a split screen, she's in Canada, and you're in North Carolina or Alaska or Texas or California or wherever you're watching this broadcast, and she touched you from across the other side of the planet, imagine being in the same room with her. Imagine hugging her. Imagine sitting down with her for an hour and hearing her story and how she can touch your soul. Is that not worth $99? Is that not worth a plane ticket or a 6-hour car ride? Somebody from Albuquerque told me yesterday they weren't going to Velocity Vegas because it's a 6-hour car ride. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? People are flying 6 hours to get here, and you won't drive 6 hours? Come on. So I challenge you, if she touched you, go to velocityvegas.com, click purchase my ticket.